What are the root causes of type 2 diabetes? Hi, I'm Dr. Beverly Yates, MD, licensed doctor of naturopathic medicine with over 30 years of clinical experience. I'm about to show you exactly how each of these root causes can result in type 2 diabetes. Some of these may surprise you. So let's go through it. One by one, we're going to cover the following things. Some of the root causes of type 2 diabetes include forever chemicals, also known as PFAS or PFAS, environmental toxins, ultra-refined, highly processed foods that lack any kind of nutrient density, also known as junk foods, too many simple carbs at one time, and not enough protein eaten, or high fiber foods like leafy green vegetables, fresh fruits, etc., and healthy fats in a meal. Sugary drinks are certainly responsible for part of this issue. Added sugars in food, including hidden added sugars. Really not fair, but they're there. Using artificial sweeteners and fake sugars. That's right, tricking the tongue into thinking something sweet, which confuses the brain. And you pay for it later, it gets you back. The brain does not like to be tricked. Poor sleep is another consideration. Chronic high levels of stress, another factor. Trauma, absolutely. Adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs as they're known. Overeating, can't tell when to stop eating. Some people are hungry all the time and they eat, but they never really feel full or satisfied or satiated. People sometimes struggle with cravings. This is another factor. Meal timing can play a role in the development of type 2 diabetes, along with a lack of exercise, and just as importantly, maybe a little more importantly, a lack of strength training, because muscles can do a lot to help to improve blood sugar profile. So it's really important to focus on these root cause issues that are relevant when you are working to reverse and heal from the damage of type 2 diabetes. Maybe you have prediabetes and you're looking to improve that situation. These things are just as relevant in that situation too. So this video covers the most common issues that people deal with as they reclaim their health. All right, let's take it at the top. So we first talked about forever chemicals known as PFAS. These are chemicals that are found in the environment due to man-made causes. Typically, they might be things like some of the chemicals that are used to waterproof, say, furniture and fabric, things of that nature, and they literally live forever. They don't break down, they don't degrade. Why are they a problem specific to type 2 diabetes? Because they impact the ability of the cell wall to function normally. And these extra toxins, once we have absorbed them into our bodies, into our bloodstream, they unfortunately keep recirculating because the body doesn't have any healthy use for them. And eventually, when we get overwhelmed, starts to store them in the liver. Most mammals, and this includes humans, when they are overwhelmed by toxins and unable to properly detoxify them and excrete or eliminate them, either through the urine if it's water soluble, or through their stool, their fecal material when they poop if it's oil soluble. If they can't get rid of those toxins, they're going to store them, and typically it's going to be in the liver. This can contribute to a cycle of fatty liver disease, as one example, right? NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So forever chemicals can be part of a root cause that leads to type 2 diabetes. Another would be a broader category of environmental toxins because, they don't belong there. And if we are overly exposed to these things and our bodies get overwhelmed, they can't detoxify it. As I like to say, tag and bag, tag that it's a toxin, bag it, so to speak, so we can package it up and get it out of the body. It can absolutely interfere with the normal function of insulin and glucose. So then we become more and more insulin resistant. And then over time, we can develop type 2 diabetes from these as problems. And if you look at parts of the country and parts of the world that really struggle with diabetes, sometimes you will see there's a heavy burden of environmental toxicity, whether it's the forever chemicals we first talked about, or now this broader category of environmental toxins. It could be from diesel fumes. It can be from herbicides and pesticides. There's lots and lots of sources of environmental toxins, okay? So now that's number two. Number three would be ultra-refined, highly processed foods, also known as junk foods. These are the kinds of foods that don't really give you any nutrients, tend to not really require chewing either, right? They're pretty pasty, bland, but however, they've been packaged up, created to stimulate your taste buds in a way that you want more. Even when you know it doesn't make sense, you still want more. These have been particularly created so that they will drive hunger. Unfortunately, this can absolutely ruin human health. So just know that those junk foods, whew, they definitely aren't our friends. And it's best to eliminate them completely as much as possible. Even if you really have your taste buds set for it, give yourself time to adjust to healthier choices, healthier foods. It'll take 2 to 3 weeks to really change what your tongue prefers, okay? For flavors. Next, another root cause issue when it comes to type 2 diabetes are eating too many simple carbs at once, whether something's sugary and sweet, maybe it's lots of refined grains, like say white rice or white potatoes at one time, and not enough protein to accompany it, or high fiber foods and healthy fats. Ideally, your meal is going to be protein rich with the high fiber foods, also known as leafy green vegetables, maybe a modest amount of fresh fruit with the skin on, and the healthy fats, because all of those things will hit your bloodstream far more gently than anything that is a simple carbohydrate. If you're going to have carbs, focus on the healthy carbs. These are the resistant starch, slow burning, complex carbohydrates that are found in beans, peas, and legumes. Beans, peas, and legumes are your friends, and they are nutrient dense. Sugary drinks are another issue and a root cause for type 2 diabetes. When I was a kid, it was common that if you had a sugary drink, like let's say you had an orange juice with your breakfast, your orange juice was a small glass. It was 4 ounces at most. That was a juice glass, right? Nowadays, people go around and they've got 32 ounces of soda, 64 ounces of soda. And this isn't to share across 12 people, it's for one person. These portions are completely out of control. And it's part of the problem. So if you think about that, the consumption of these sugary drinks for root cause issues, this would include coffee drinks, tea drinks, when you get them out, aside from cafes or from boba shops or wherever, they're like 16 ounces, 32 ounces, 24 ounces. It's just too much at one time. It's that simple. And so there's no balance to it. These sugary drinks can really drive a desire for yet more sugar, yet more sweets. It's really interesting how these things are tied together, and we're in an environment where we just cannot afford to consume these things. Water, herbal teas will be our friends for all time, I think. Okay, another factor that can be a root cause with type 2 diabetes is added sugars in food. Sometimes these added sugars are not revealed on the label, or they're named in really tricky, oddball ways. So always read your labels so you understand what's in whatever it is you're eating or drinking. Be an informed consumer. If you've noticed the package has recently changed, it may mean the formulation changed. So something that maybe was a healthier option before might not be so healthy now. Maybe another company has purchased that business and has changed how they do things. So read labels so you're well informed and can understand what you're putting in to your body. All right, another root cause issue, and this one might be controversial, but let's dive in, okay, is using artificial sweeteners and fake sugars. Now, I want you to think about this, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments for this video. If we use artificial sweeteners and fake sugars, what are we telling our tongue, specifically our taste buds? And then what do the taste buds report to the brain? Well, your taste buds say, hey, that tastes sweet to me. Tells the brain, we got sweet coming in. The brain says, oh, okay, sweet. All right, cool. Means calories. It means energy. Time goes by, half hour, an hour, 90 minutes later, and your brain is waiting for calories to accompany the sweet taste that you had from the artificial sweetener or the fake sugar. But after a while, an hour to 90 minutes later, your brain's like, well, hold on, whoa. I had a sweet taste, but no calories. Where's my calories? And then you can easily get into a cycle of wanting to snack. If this describes you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. It's an unfortunate reality. Research has shown very clearly that the use of artificial sweeteners and fake sugars drives snacking. It also drives a rise, ironically, in blood sugar. Often when people are using artificial sweeteners and using fake sugars, it's because they're trying to have a sweet taste and then not have the impact of gaining weight, having your blood sugar go higher, etc. But this isn't the reality of how it really lands in the body. So if you're using artificial sweeteners and fake sugars, it's in your best interest to wean yourself off of that stuff and just either go without it or have a small amount of an actual sugar, because at least the body knows what to do with it and will recognize it. So this is definitely something to consider, okay? Root cause issues around what can cause type 2 diabetes. All right, another one is poor sleep. Poor sleep is underappreciated in its impact on blood sugar. If you have a sleep disorder, like say sleep apnea, if you have insomnia, if you have a busy mind and you just cannot shut off your mind, or you can't get back to sleep if you awaken in the middle of the night, just know that that could start to cause problems with your blood sugar. And again, if that describes you, really consider what you can possibly do to improve your sleep quality. Make sure you're getting to bed on time and awakening at the same time each day, just for the consistency. And so your body has a good circadian rhythm. It knows what to expect around your sleep. If you're enjoying this, would you please be so kind as to take a moment, subscribe to my channel, and give it a like, and that way other people will know, and the YouTube algorithm will know that this is content that you actually want. All right, great. Let's talk about another topic, and that is chronic high levels of stress. Too much stress is really not a good thing. Small moments, short, brief times where we have stress, but it's big, but it's temporary, it's for an actual emergency, that's going to be okay. We are designed to be able to respond to an emergency. Cortisol, the hormone of stress, is what I think of as the hormone of the superhero. It lets you do things in the moment that are necessary to rise to the occasion. That's okay. Whether it's fight or flee or whatever it might be, lift the car off a loved one, etc. People can do amazing things in those moments. Here's the problem though. If you are constantly subjected to high levels of stress, especially where you feel like you're trapped, you don't have any choices, things are hopeless, it's such a downward spiral. And your blood sugar will over time start to rise, rise, rise. It's going to go up. Whenever the body releases lots of cortisol, at the same time, it releases lots of blood sugar, also called glucose, simply because it's giving your body the energy to do the fighting or running away, the fleeing, right? The difference here is that with chronic exposures like this, your body is not actually able to work off that cortisol and its release of extra blood sugar. It's just high. And this leads to problems with cholesterol. It leads to problems potentially with weight. It could lead to problems with mood, with mental health, with all sorts of things that usually are imbalanced and regulated. So these things are tied together. Chronic high levels of stress can absolutely be a root cause for type 2 diabetes, just like poor sleep, sleep apnea, all these other things we're talking about. The nutrition factors, they all come together. Trauma, similarly, can have that impact and be a root cause for type 2 diabetes. If you look at the history, if you talk to people who have type 2 diabetes, a common element in their background are issues with trauma. It could be repeated traumas. It could have been one really severe one. Maybe they have post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Perhaps they've been in war. They've been in extreme circumstances, and now their body is unable to properly regulate their metabolism. Their insulin and blood sugar response, insulin glucose response is compromised, and it's a result of the trauma. That's another way people can become type 2 diabetic. Adverse childhood experiences would absolutely be in this category with traumas. Children who have been abused, when they grow up as adults, they are far more vulnerable to insulin resistance and to developing type 2 diabetes. That's another thing that could be a root cause. Something else to consider in today's world with all this highly processed, ultra-refined food are these issues with overeating. Sometimes people wind up overeating simply because the kind and quality of food they've gotten, they're not getting good feedback to their brain that says, hey, you've had enough, it's time to stop. And in fact, if you have a combination of chronic high levels of stress and poor sleep together, those are the twin gremlins: poor sleep, too much stress together. That leads to an imbalance of two hormones that aren't commonly talked about, which are leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin is the one that sounds like growling. So ghrelin is for hunger. It is the hormone of hunger, ghrelin, spelled Ghrelin. So think of a growling stomach, hunger, ghrelin. Okay, now leptin is the one for satiety, of feeling full, of feeling satisfied, being able to tell it's time to stop eating. When you have lots of stress or poor sleep, and heaven forbid if it's both of them, you're far more likely to struggle with overeating. You're going to be hungry. You may be hangry, which is hungry and angry at the same time. You're going to want to eat. You're going to want to snack and just nibble. This may or may not also be one way that emotional eating can show up. The other thing to consider here is that it'll be hard to tell when it's time to stop eating. Leptin is the hormone that tells us when it's time to stop eating. And if you are being signaled to constantly eat more than you really even want to, but you just can't seem to stop because you're so hungry, and then on the other side, you don't get the internal feedback, the stop sign that says, hey, it's time to stop eating. I've had enough. I'm full. I'm satisfied. I'm satiated. This is really going to be a problem. You're going to struggle. So that's another aspect of root causes of type 2 diabetes. Cravings tell us a lot. So if your cravings are for savory umami foods, maybe really high calorie mixes like, say, biscuits and gravy, or your cravings are for sweets, maybe you want cakes and cookies, things like that. These can all come from those imbalances with chronic high levels of stress, poor sleep, that'll do it for you, along with issues with overeating and not being able to tell when you're full. These can conspire and come together and really get into a vicious cycle with lots and lots of cravings. And if you are going and responding to those cravings because they're saying to you, hey, I just need to eat more sweets and I'll be okay. And then, half hour goes by, next thing you know, you want more sweets. Or you're being shoved towards the savory and umami side that tends to be high calorie. Either one can result in high levels of blood sugar over time. And, your body after a while is absolutely going to say, look, our insulin response is out of sorts here. We need this to change, but how do you do it, right? Okay. So then another factor to consider here is meal timing. Meal timing is really important. One of the things I've observed in terms of the etiology, in other words, a fancy way to say that how things got started. We talk about these root causes of type 2 diabetes, is that with meal timing, sometimes people who have type 2 diabetes tend to have a history of not eating lunch. They started out the day okay, they ate their breakfast, and then for whatever reason, middle of the day got away from them. They didn't have a plan for their midday meal, their lunch. They hadn't brought it with them, or they weren't at home and easily able to prepare something that was healthful. They were maybe eating fast food outside, or they just didn't get to eat at all at lunchtime. And by the time they got to dinner, they were overly hungry. They were probably hangry, irritable, angry, acting out, difficult to be around, along with feeling really bad, right? Until they finally got a chance to eat. And then once they ate dinner after having not had lunch, they're far more likely to eat too much. This can happen to any of us. We're all human. This can be part of the cycle of what results in type 2 diabetes. It's just good to be aware about that. And then at this point, we're going to talk about exercise and strength training. Consistent regular exercise is wonderful for type 2 diabetes. But just as is true for something for personal training or for athletic performance, you can't out-exercise a bad diet. So if you haven't fixed your nutrition, exercise won't save you all by itself. Exercise is fantastic. It's awesome for blood sugar regulation. It's very, very good, you know? However, I just want to be really clear because I have seen people just exercise, 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 and then they immediately go and eat something ridiculous. Like, come on, give your body a chance here. And then we will end on the idea of strength training. Strength training is marvelous for so many reasons. It helps us to optimize anti-aging. It helps us to maintain our balance and stay strong as we get older so we can avoid falls. We can also improve our proprioception, our sense of where we are in space and time, and avoid trips, falling, and all the insecurities that go with a loss of mobility. And strength training actually is precious because it is a great way to regulate blood sugar. Those active working muscles are blood sugar sponges. We want to use something that straightforwardly as much as we possibly can in being healthy. So when we talk about these root causes for type 2 diabetes, just know there's a fair amount of complexity here, right? So it's important to focus on the root causes that are relevant to you when working to reverse and heal from the damage of type 2 diabetes. And this video has covered the most common issues that people deal with as they reclaim their health. So if you like this video, please support us by clicking the subscribe button and hitting the like button. This way others can know that this is something that they can also benefit from. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Take care.